on this episode of Edge of the Web.
How do you identify what motivates a person, intrinsically or extrinsically, and how do you help them connect with that? And that's an important part. Like, most people want to dangle a carrot and say, you should care about this. That's not my position. My position is, tell me what you care about and let me figure out a path for you to get there.
Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. You're listening and watching Edge of the Web. Winners of Best Podcast from the Content Marketing Institute for 2017. Hear and see more at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now, alongside Tom Broadbeck, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
It's Christmas Eve. We do that every year, right? We jump in there and throw in the Christmas jingles. Always love the Christmas dubstep. That's always a favorite of mine this time of year. Hey, we're broadcasting from Edge Media Studios, located in Indianapolis, downtown Indianapolis, Indiana. Every week we bring you the latest marketing trends and news, as well as guests that are marketing influencers, fantastic people from around the planet, to be able to provide you some great information about kind of demystifying marketing tactics out there in the social media realm, the search engine optimization realm, which is a huge discipline here at Site Strategics, inside of all marketing spaces, SEM, SEO. Well, I said SEO twice because it's that important. But what we've been doing for the last 7 years is be able to unpack this information and provide you some great information and introduce you to some great pioneers in the digital marketing front. Check out all the recent shows over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. We're powered by Site Strategics, the title sponsor of the show. And we're the Agile digital marketing agency located in Indianapolis, Indiana here. And if you're interested in what Agile means to you, go over to Site Strategics. Check it out. It's the results-based, credit and flexible-based marketing approach. And if you're interested in what this could possibly mean for you, just give us a shout. But happily have our free consultation to talk about your online success and perhaps a couple cool action tips that you can bring to your site or to your execution immediately. So check all that out over at sitestrategics.com. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. I'm the owner of Site Strategics and founder of Edge Media Studios. And to my left, we have, again, the indomitable Thomas Broadbeck. How you doing, sir?
Hello. Indomitable snowman.
Exactly. Now it's finally apt, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about your dog. Your dog needs some dog flu shots.
Apparently, dog flu shots are a thing. So,
yeah, we were talking off air, and evidently, have you gotten your dog flu shots? you might want to check.
You
that
just
out.
Can't go to Kroger and get it done.
The Minute Clinic won't give Fido his flu shot. I didn't even know that was a thing, but evidently it is. So Tom's here. He's the director of digital media here at Site Strategics. And the reason we do this show, like I said in the beginning here, is we unpack a lot of information, and we like to share this information on what's trending in the digital marketing space. But on top of it, more a bit of a selfish interest is we want to keep our powder dry. We want to make sure that we are learning what our best practices in the digital marketing space. What better way than actually learning from some great guests that we interview on a regular basis. So I'd like to introduce to you a particular guest is Jeff Allen. He's the president of Hanapin Marketing. Jeff, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Well, I mean, we've been in the same state, Jeff, but I've failed to come down to Bloomington. You've been president for 5 years at Hanapin?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Excellent. Hanapin is a fantastic digital marketing company here in Indiana, and they're known nationally. And we're always proud to be able to have colleagues from the state, but we needed to come around to Hanapin, and forgive me for not talking to you earlier.
No worries. We'll have you down anytime.
Roger that. Roger that. Hey, whenever you're in Indy, we're right around the corner here. Every show that we do, Jeff, we go through the latest digital marketing news. Are you game for that?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's take you through the latest digital marketing news. Go.
Put that cookie down now. This week's trending topics.
Yeah, cookies are off the menu as well.
That's my cookie. We put it down.
Yeah, we did. Absolutely. You can have all the cookies. I'm not allowed to have any cookies. Dude, I indulged so much on Thanksgiving with cookies. It was a bad scene.
Not pie?
No. Oh, we had a Derby pie that was just to die for. You know what Derby pie is? It's
Heard of it.
chocolate and pecan. It's and pecan pie with chocolate chips and a little bit of bourbon, and it's wonderful. Oh, we're doing a digital marketing show. Sorry.
The pie show's after.
Hey, from search engine land, from Barry Schwartz, Google showing 0 results again for many time calculations and conversion search results. What's going on here on Google in that space?
Yeah, so earlier this year, they were testing out the 0 search result listing, and so essentially they've rolled it out now. It started out as a test. I got a bunch of feedback that was anti this layout, and so they pulled it back, and they decided to launch it again earlier this week. So now, if you were to search, there's on the screen it says time in New Jersey. You'll just get the clock result,
And that's it.
and nothing else. No ads, no organic links, nothing else. And then there's the show results button.
Right.
So they're trying to a lot of the feedback that Google got the last time they rolled it out is like if somebody was searching their time in New York, they could be looking for the New York Times.
Right.
And so there'd be a lot of traffic that New York Times was losing from that search query. And so they'll be selective on how they use the 0 search result layout. So here you see the time in New York. They've got the time and date search, and then the New York Times below that. So Google released a statement saying, as always, our goal with search is to help people quickly find the most relevant information. For queries where we have extremely high confidence that a user is seeking a calculation, a unit conversion, or local time, you'll show a single result to improve load time on mobile.
Right.
So no, so it's a single result, not I've been saying 0 result. But since our initial experiment in February, we worked to remove ads and improve the triggering quality for this experience to be sure that we're serving the users what they're looking for, and we'll still provide the option to tap to see more results. So
All right.
it's here. This is obviously, I think, related to the Google Home devices, just to kind of sync those things up. The Google Home Hub's out now, so it's the Google Voice Assistants with a screen. So we'll see this more and more. So I think as an SEO, you need to be prepared for that and adjust accordingly.
So if I have a client that is selling calculators, and I am optimizing calculators,
Sure.
all of a sudden you're getting Google's calculator, not the results that I've been at. I mean, and it's really that intent understanding and prediction that Google is laying in front of us right now. What's the consumer's intent for that particular query?
Yep.
That's a big risky move there, and I can only imagine there's a heck of a lot of going to be continued problems in that space. Jeff, what are your thoughts about the 0 position single resource?
Yeah, I mean, I think as it stands now, not like the biggest deal, but to me, it's always about the slippery slope where this leads us to. So we have a client in the weather space. A lot of their traffic comes from folks searching for, really specific. Their intent is clearly to check the weather today in a specific city or something like that. And so that hasn't been touched yet, but will that happen?
Yeah.
It kind of seems like it. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, if I'm checking for the time, that seems like a really easy thing to return, but where does it really go from there? And then it also just feels like optimizing around the edges. Like, why are they spending any of their resources doing this? Is this really making the web any better at all?
It's almost like remember the widgets on your Apple. Remember that one screen that you always had the little, and it was fun for a while. You don't know this because you're not an Apple guy, but we've all ignored widgets, and it's just like, all right, is this really a necessary resource? We have a calculators, we have these tools. They're really getting in front of what Google's really supposed to be, Yeah,
I mean, I guess I get it from the standpoint is there's one right answer, right? Whatever the time is, it's that time. So you don't need to be searching through thousands of results or how many results there are for that search query to see, is this time better than the other time? So, I mean, I could see that with weather. I can see how they can make that a single result listing, but I can also see I've searched so many times when weather forecasts are inaccurate, or if you want like a 30-day forecast if you're going on vacation, or you want to know what the weather is like in the month of October in Denver or something.
Or whether I should go to a particular destination.
Sure.
And that's all fine and dandy as long as you're spelling everything correctly.
Yeah.
misspells are going to take you right off the map here. Anyway, I don't like it, but hey, that's just me. From Robin Kuzer over at Marketing Land, consumers spent a record, get this, $6.22 billion online on Black Friday. Oh my gosh. Shoppers are no longer waiting for Black Friday. They're purchasing on smartphones more than ever this year. Shoppers actually dropped a record $6.22 billion with a B. That's an increase of 23.6% over last year. That's amazing. That is incredible. Shoppers are going straight from your turkey to their phones. They've actually reported that consumers are actually starting their holiday shopping even earlier. Now we have Cyber Monday week, by the way, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm still getting deals.
Oh, they're not stopping. They're not stopping. And the growth is incredible. Salesforce actually reported that consumers were literally taking to their phones immediately after dinner, with mobile usage ramping up after 4 p.m. and peaking between 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. local time. We'd have to check with Google about the local time there. But Salesforce based its numbers on a variety of sources, including shopper data, consumer engagements, and public social media conversations and surveys. The trend of people increasingly shopping online on Thanksgiving has developed over the past few years, says an Adobe Analytics spokesperson. We attribute this to many consumers being on the road and with their families during the holiday, and the whole goal of actually getting away from your family because of the argument that happened at the dinner table, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jeff, mobile shopping. I mean, it's here. I mean, we remember 10 years ago, and now we're here, and it's $6.2 billion on one day. Dude, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think two things. First, I was glad this article helped settle an argument I had on Thanksgiving, which is what time you should eat. I'm a very much an early eater, and the fact that it said that, after 4 was right after dinner helped me win a bet with my wife. So big fan of that. But beyond that, I mean, yes, mobile's here and it's big, but it was actually interesting to me that it was only $2 billion out of the $6 billion. I mean, that's obviously meaningful money, but when I think of mobile, I see much larger distribution to mobile channels through our paid clients.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know. I think that maybe that's a little bit telling that my bet would be some retail folks that used to go to retail shopping, are actually shopping on a desktop on Black Friday instead. And that's just a guess, but it just seems like that's where the money is being pulled from, not necessarily from desktop itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But mobile transactions have been increasing steadily, and the conversion rate increase has been happening over the last 4 years in almost double digits. Yeah, you're right, but at the same time, I don't know. I think this is a very poignant moment, because this actually, I mean, if you look back 10 years, I mean, we're still online, we're doing transactions. This has literally eclipsed the amount of transactions, I mean, just from the mobile space of what we were doing 10 years ago. I mean, it's huge. It's fantastic. It's exciting. But my gosh, what a drain on the family life, because everybody rushes to their phones, right?
Well, how much did you spend, Aaron?
Oh, Lord. I'm not even
going
to
buy any?
I am not going to be documented on any sort of media talking about that. And plus, I was in a tree stand, so I couldn't do that. All right. Last article from Matt Southern over at Search Engine Journal. Google to serve ads across Disney properties with a new partnership. Here we go, guys. Matt Southern is always a great resource. Google has formed a new global strategic partnership with Walt Disney Company, which will allow Google to serve ads across Disney properties. Disney will bring its entire global video and display business into the Google Ad Manager. That means that Google Ad Manager is now Disney's core ad technology platform. Google will power advertising for Disney brands and properties such as ABC, ESPN, Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars. Yep, they got Star Wars in there as well. The advertising channel will also include live streaming and direct consumer content offerings. Well, I mean, if they're going to pick any ad engine, it's going to be Google.
Yeah. Disney's getting ready to launch Disney Plus. I don't know if you've heard about Disney Plus.
No, what's that?
So it's their alternative to Netflix. So there's going to be original Star Wars content. There's going to be original All the Disney movies, as I understand it, will be in there to stream for a monthly fee. So,
I've not
I
heard
assume
about
this
that.
soon this will be tied into it, but I don't know, since it's a paid platform that you're paying. I would assume you wouldn't be served with ads in that platform, but you never know. Or if there's a free option or something to that. So, I think this is all tying into that Disney Plus, and I think that comes out next year.
Do you think they're actually going to stop releasing 20th anniversary DVDs, and they're just going to direct everything to
I
streaming?
mean, this is where that new Mandalorian, the Star Wars show that Jon Favreau is shooting, that's going to be all Disney Plus, and so there's going to be content specifically towards Disney Plus. I don't know if that's tied into this or not, but obviously at least the website and their app platforms and all that stuff as well.
This is a big piece of news. Jeff, what's your take on all that?
Yeah, so I thought of Disney Plus right away too. I think that's a logical connection. I love it. So we were a Google TV advertiser a long time ago, back when that was a thing, and we got tremendous results from it. And so I think it's a plus. And I would like to see how it ties in with Disney Plus. My guess is they do have either some free but with ads version, or I believe Hulu has that option where there's limited commercials and you're still paying, or no commercials and you pay a little bit more. I think that would be a good strong advantage of them against Netflix.
I just don't want to have Google ads pop up whenever you're at the Magic Kingdom. On every one of the Disney kiosks, all of a sudden, Sorry, that was a bad dad joke there. I'm guaranteeing that I'm going to be hit by one of my 4 kids asking for Disney Plus.
Probably.
It's going to suck. It's going to suck. All right, but
just buckle in and pay the money.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You can buckle in and not pay for. That's our newsletter. Each and every week, we're sending out nuggets of gold to you about who we've talked to, who we're going to be talking to here in the following weeks, as well as interesting stories like this. So simply go over to edgeofthewebradio.com and jump onto the newsletter, free of charge, obviously, and you can simply submit information and you'll be on the mailing list, or you can text to the number 228. I've been doing this for 7 years and I forgot the number. 228. Text to the number 22828. The word Edge Talk, and you can start that sign up right there on your smartphone. Don't do it when you drive, but hey, you always want to listen to the podcast when you are. All right. So for that, hey, it's a great resource, and we always are asking for our recipients to give us some contributions and let us know how we're doing on that front. So follow all the featured trending topics over at edgeofthewebradio.com. Now let's deep dive with this week's featured guest.
Now it's time for Edge of the Web featured interview with Jeff Allen, president of Hanapin Marketing.
And the deep voice guy introduces Jeff Allen from Hanapin Marketing. He actually has 15 years of experience in the digital advertising space. His career started in the development of an email marketing platform before moving on to developing sales and marketing departments for different startups. Boy, that's a challenge and a half right there. Since coming to Hanapin, the company has actually grown employees and revenue by 5 times. I'm going to repeat that again. Since he got there, 5-fold. Employees and revenue. That's fantastic. With his ability to translate goals into strategies and plans. Welcome to the show, Jeff. Hey, what's your backstory? Give us a little bit of your personal history and how, that's the official bio there, but how'd you get to digital marketing through sales?
Yeah, so I'm just a super lucky person. So I have a lot of cool opportunities that come kind of out of nowhere for me. So I got started in the whole thing in college, answered a part-time job or an ad for a part-time job doing email marketing. And after doing it for like 6 months, they were like, why don't you take a stab at writing an actual copy for this outgoing email? I did that and it worked well. And so I just kind of worked part-time, went to college part-time and muddled my way through that. And coming out of it, I just would, all of a sudden search would be a thing and someone would say, can someone figure this out? And they would push a computer my way and I'd start playing around with ads. And then someone would say, we think we should hire a salesperson. And so can you write a script? And I would write a script and, things would go well. I just been given a ton of really cool opportunities. And I think people often ask me, how do I become president of an agency or something like that? I'm like, you have to be really lucky. And then you have to have the skill to notice luck when it's coming your way and actually act on it.
That's actually a very unique skill, and it's not regular in the digital marketing community, unfortunately, to be able to recognize not only luck but also be able to see when something's happening and take advantage of it. So you've been in the agency life for a number of years, and you certainly have some observations on culture, on interactions with team members. Are you a mentor of sorts for your team?
Yeah, so we have a formal mentorship program. I think I have 4 right now, some that I've been working with for 3 years, some 2 years, and some 1 year. And we kind of have formal one-on-ones every 2 weeks to really sit down and talk about whatever's on their mind. It always starts with that question, hey, what's on your mind? Sometimes they bring really specific work problems and I try to help them work through it. Other times, it's outside life and they want my perspective on it. That's the part of the job I actually enjoy the most. I get the most energy from it, partly because they let me talk a lot and I like talking a lot. And so that works out for me. But it's really rewarding to look back on someone 3 years ago and see, maybe they've had 2 promotions since then. And maybe they're, now a star performer or something like that. It's very rewarding.
That's invaluable to be able to have leadership that invests in the team. I got a question for you. Conversely, how do you invest time to and what are some strategies to be able to help retain talent and preventing churn and turnover? Because that's also, unfortunately, pretty high in the digital marketing space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We probably have like 3 different things we do that I think would be like the core thing. So the first one's hiring, right? So 60 to 70% of all of our revenue goes straight to our employees through what we pay them, through benefits, all that kind of good stuff. And so we believe strongly that if we are the very best agency in the world at finding the right talent for us, because it's not always the right talent for other agencies, we will be the world's best agency, right? We think those 2 things go hand in hand, and that also impacts churn. So we've really spent a lot of time, and now I think have a good understanding of who really can succeed, what the traits are that they have, what are the soft skills, and warning signs and everything like that. So the right hires is a huge piece of it. And then there is the ongoing one-on-ones, mentorship, review processes, so we do semi-annual reviews. But even in the quarters, we don't do reviews. We do goal pathing where we really sit down with the employees and say, where do you want to go? Map out your career, your job, your specific job titles, map out the skills you need to be in those job titles at another point in the future. And then we kind of help them figure out how we're going to do that for them. But probably the most unique thing that we do is a thing called stay interviews.
Yeah.
We've been talking about them for a really long time, so maybe more and more people are doing them. But, every company, when someone quits, they sit down, do an exit interview. Why did you leave? And how can we change that in the future? Most people don't ever actually act on that information anyway, but also it's too late. Why are you waiting until someone leaves to find out why they're leaving?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we do a literal stay interview. We sit in front of them. And I think the first question is, what is it about your job that makes you roll your eyes? And we don't let them not answer it, right? They can't just say everything's great. And we're like, well, we know we're great, but if you had a complaint about something, what would it be? And you start getting to the real heart of the matter. It's like, we've done stuff as simple as like every Monday we have to fill out this report and it doesn't seem like anyone does anything with it. Why do we fill this out? It's such a waste of time. And we're just like, yeah, you're right. And that would probably make me quit someday too if I just felt like my work was meaningless and why am I doing it? So let's stop filling out that report.
So, I mean, you're pulling and finding out what are the best tactics and best communication tools for your agency to be able to mine some good information of how to steer and how to give back and also how to guide your employees. This stay interview is very, very interesting because you're absolutely right. Is that so many organizations don't do that type of benchmark test or that ping of sorts of how are you in the firm. You only learn really some things to actually change after they're already gone. What would be an effective stay interview versus a poor stay interview? Can you give me kind of a result based answer coming out of those 2 different scenarios?
Yeah. So one is you want really specific next steps. Like it should be, here are the 3 reasons this person would quit their job, very specifically. If we don't change these things, if there's not a clear next step for them in their career, or that could be an example of something they have to see, or there's this thing they're doing, they feel like it's a total waste of time and it's driving them crazy. Or sometimes we've had people say, I have this one client, I love everything else we do, but I have this one client, we just don't get along, and I've been on that account for 3 years. Like, maybe we can do something about it. And so it's a lot about that specificity that makes it good versus just vague, like, oh, they're happy, they love it, everything's great. That's a key thing. And kind of an extension of that is, so when my first full year at Hanapin, we had, I think it was 70% retention, so 30% turnover, which is really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked to our people that whole year, what's going on, how can we help? And we got some feedback. But the problem is we didn't listen. It was so easy for us to discount every single thing someone said as like a one-off thing, or too small to worry about. And so after a year of being really frustrated, we sat down and said, what if we just listen? Like, what if everything someone came and told us, we just assumed they were right and telling the truth, and it wasn't just them complaining or just about them specifically. And so we started listening and doing really small stuff around the office. Most of it was really small stuff. And all of a sudden we noticed, people, one, stopped bringing as many things to us, but also started saying, okay, this company cares. And even if everything's not perfect, if I tell them about something that's not perfect, they're going to act on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're setting the stage of the employees have to know that you're receptive and can guide by their input. But at the same time, you can't get strung along by every individual whim, right? Because human nature could very well kind of affect some of that feedback as well. It's like, if you're listening, then I can really dump some stuff in there and kind of change my work environment radically, right? So I'm obviously assuming that you have that filter, but what type of patterns do you see from that large intake of information from your employees that are more than answering individual problems? What are you taking away that actually is much more of a paradigm shift type of thing?
Sure. So one of them was clear career paths and that extend far beyond that specific employee's life cycle. So what I mean by that is not just like 2 years in the future, what's the single next step, but really what's the big picture. We, at the time, way back then in 2013, 2012 or so, we felt like it was well-defined, but it was only defined to like the current team we had at that time, if that makes sense. And so we stepped back and said, okay, well, 5-10 years from now, what are the other roles we're going to have? And how do we start telling people what the path is into those?
Mm-hmm.
And we just communicated a lot. We actually have some banners hanging up in our on our walls, and they list specific employees and that specific employee's career path. And it shows how some may have been an intern and then went into the services department and now is actually in the sales department, or some that started in marketing and then sales or something like that. But it shows these unique paths. They're all very intentional. It's not why they seem kind of crazy. We've mapped out for those specific employees what to do. And there's just a lot of comfort with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that someone's going to expect, 5 years from now for you to honor the exact title and position and role and everything like that. You said, I think sometimes we worry about that. It's more about, I just want to feel comfortable that as I grow, this company can grow with me.
Mm-hmm. And
that was really important for us. And just to kind of go back to your point, when we first started listening, we did act on pretty much everything. And the main reason why is we were small at the time. We were like 13, 15 employees, something like that. And so one, there just wasn't that many people that we had to worry about acting on.
Mm-hmm.
But also what we realized is we had a lot of institutional knowledge, things we knew that would work or wouldn't work. But the small team we had and the relatively inexperienced in terms of the grand scheme, not having 15 years of experience or whatnot, didn't necessarily have that same life experience. So like my favorite example is everyone would always complain, why don't we have fresh fruit for snacks, right? Everyone complains about the snacks. It's kind of an ongoing joke at every company if you give free snacks out. But the specific complaint was, why not fresh fruit?
Because of fruit flies. Fruit flies, everybody. Come on.
So that's 100% it. So no. We finally said, fine, you guys want fresh fruit? We went and bought a bunch of bananas and oranges and whatever else, put them in the kitchen, went home for the weekend, came back on Monday, and the office was full of fruit flies.
That's it.
And it was, this is exactly why, guys. And it's because no one eats it at the pace that you buy it.
Right.
And because there's a really bad consequence when that happens. And so that was like 3 years ago, and not a single person since then has ever asked us to have fresh fruit in our office.
Yeah, but to that point, as an example, pretty poignant example, is you can provide cultural things that the team wants, right? But you can't talk them out of it until they actually experience maybe the drawbacks by implementation of something. Okay, so have you experienced things where, yeah, it sounded great on paper, everybody wanted to chime around to it, and all of a sudden X happened, unforeseen, but everybody kind of learned from it, but they wouldn't have had it not actually been implemented. You have another example, kind of similar to the fruit flies, but a bit more larger scale?
Sure. So we had a moment in time where, we had client calls and people really didn't like kind of leading and being on the client call themselves. But again, at the time, we weren't that big of a company to always have 2 or 3 people on every single client call we had. And our clients were smaller at the time. So from a revenue standpoint, we couldn't really justify it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the team said, hey, we want a buddy system. I'll go out of my way and I'll just sit on this other person's calls. They'll sit on my calls. We'll kind of help each other out and we won't feel like we're going it alone. And so we're like, all right, sure, let's do that. You guys want to do it? You'll spend the energy. And it lasted about 2 months before everyone was like, wait, now I'm on like
twice as many calls.
7 calls a week. And now I'm not just stressed about my calls, I'm stressed about theirs. And even though I don't have to do anything, it's causing me some stress. And I'm thinking about their accounts before I go to bed, even though it's not an account I work on. And so, that evolved into our team of team structure. So now we do have, a lot of different people working on some very large accounts. And so it did kind of buy us some time and help us see a path to a better solution.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a little bit at the time, like, Band-Aid solution. You could see that it's probably not going to end well.
Yeah, but you wouldn't have experienced it. I mean, you wouldn't have known it unless you literally put it into the ecosystem there. But at the same time, like you said, there's gold that comes out of it that you would not have known about, and you wouldn't have been able to change inside of your organization had you not kind of gone through that mess, right?
Yep, absolutely. And it's an example of, what I call like risk with low margin of failure. Right. So if that went wrong, all we had to do was not put people on calls, and the client experience, the client's not going to pay our tuition to teach the team that. The fruit flies thing, right? Mm-hmm. Like no one's really paying that tuition. It's just annoying for all of us, but it's a pretty low margin of failure. But we're not going to, take someone that's never done anything in a paid search account who wants to do it and say, sure, go in and start playing around, and it won't go well, and you'll learn your lesson. Obviously, that's kind of where we draw the line, the margin of failure, and then never, ever, ever, ever is our client to pay the tuition for us to learn something.
That's a good phrase right there, paying the tuition, because they're not coming to you for that. Do you have certain structure in place? So, for example, somebody who's in SEO wants to make a lateral move into SEM, for example, they've got to learn. Do you have certain mentors, internal mentors in your organization for that type of like a tutor mindset, so you can prevent accidents from happening, but still keep them in the channel with that particular client?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So we do have formal mentorship programs. Someone can raise their hand and say, this is something I want to learn more about, and we make that connection. But also, if someone wants to move to that, we don't necessarily start them, job title and pay over, but we start them in the training that a brand new person to our company would go through.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a mistake we learned fairly early on. We would hire experienced people, bring them to our team, and kind of have an assumption about what they knew and what they didn't and what they would need training on. And so they got an abridged training. And after a few times of folks coming out and 6 months later really surprising us, not knowing something that seemed obvious to us, but to them, they just never had a type of client before, or their agency didn't prioritize that, or whatever it is. We just said, you know what, you're going to go through new hire training as if you don't know anything about PPC.
Oh, wow.
And it's going to be really boring. You're going to roll your eyes a lot. But there's going to be one thing that you're not even going to know today that you don't know,
right,
that you're going to come out and you're going to be better at. And then 6 months from now, there's no built-in excuse of like, well, I didn't know that because I didn't get trained on it.
It's part of the process.
Yep,
Well,
exactly.
Along with that opens up another challenge, is keeping the tuition up to date, so to speak, or keeping the education, I should say, up to date by continuing to bring in good education, good knowledge points, because if you don't do it, you're going to go stale. So you're literally having to, because you have an education system going on, lateral job education, you also have another responsibility to keep abreast of everything, to be able to give your team the freshest tactics or the newest trends, right?
Yep, absolutely. So we handle that by a thing we call Red Bob. So every employee we get gets 100 hours a year of ongoing training. And for the services, for like the people actually pulling levers in accounts, it's called Red Bob, which is just a made up name, stands for like research, best practices, something like that. The now is obviously lost to me. But it's a full day, shut the office down. Everyone actually sets their out of office responders to a personal message from me, which basically says, this person's taking a day to train. We think it's really important our people do ongoing training and continue to do that to the betterment of your account, for the betterment of your account. So if you have an issue, here's my cell phone and here's my email address, and reach out to me directly. And so then the team goes and researches and studies and teaches each other the stuff they need to know. And that's really evolved over time. I mean, when we were smaller, that was all it was. Now we actually bring Google out, and they'll do a day training with some new feature releases. Facebook was out here a month or two ago doing the same thing. And we've even paid for some trainers like Brad Geddes to come out and train our team if we feel like there's something deeper they need to know than they're just going to be able to teach themselves.
Sure. No, it's great. I mean, and that's the full circle right there, is that you just can't expect everyone to be able to.
Yeah, especially in the PPC world, I feel like Google releases a new ad feature in the Google ad space like every week. Like SEO is like there's new updates all the time, but it's like every week with Ad Manager there's something.
Yeah, you got to keep that fresh no matter what. But you do get to find, again, unforeseen spaces in which you can grow your company, because what you're doing is investing in education. You're investing in retention. Obviously, you're keeping the job fresh and exciting, right? But on top of it, you're also bringing brand new data, brand new information into your organization, digesting it, cutting it up, and being able to share it amongst your peers. So you've called your team this. What does it mean to be team of teams in Hanapin?
Yeah, so team of teams for us is, we want to break down silos. So we don't want like a social team that only does social for a specific account and they have separate calls, and there's poor communication on our side. So when we do a client assignment, it's more like a matrix organization, right? Where sure, we have a social specialist on that call, but they join the calls right alongside the search manager, and they work together really closely. We think that streamlines things for the clients. They don't have to have multiple conversations, but on our side, it just improves the workflow we have. So that extends from social to Amazon to search to CRO, being able to pull in those resources.
Okay. Well, that is actually that dovetailed right into what we were talking about. So how do you get your team of teams to be able to produce more results than other agencies? I mean, obviously they have their own ecosystems, their own investment in education, but how can you eclipse them regularly?
Yeah. So part of it is it goes back to the hiring, which is a kind of a cop-out answer. But if you hire the right people who are super, super curious,
right,
who have like a deep need to understand what's happening in an account, and then mixed with the right type of competition. So anytime like a Google or a Facebook comes to our office, they're like, your agency's weird. Like, you guys aren't competitive with each other. You're not fighting for positions. They're not fighting for accounts. Like, y'all get along really well. And I say, oh, we're really, really competitive. It's just it's with ourselves. It's with the betterment of our results as a company, not, with each other or even other agencies. It's just not that kind of thing. We think there's enough for us, to go. There's enough business to go around for all of us, and it's about the right fit. So if you have that right curiosity and you have that right competition to just always get better, it drives that. And that's why we have things like, our organic growth, same account growth is something like 20-25% of our revenue every year.
Wow.
Because our folks just buckle down and say, I want to do what's better for this account. And when they do that, the results are there. And so the clients give us more money.
Okay. I'm gonna let's do a sidebar on this note. You're talking about intrinsic motivation of learning and curiosity. Is Hannah? That's how do I say this? You're demonstrating a behavior in agencies that is not common, because you're not seeing, by and large. I mean, this is just management and employees. Not even respective to a particular industry, you're not going to have 80% that are intrinsically motivated with curiosity, wanting to give back, wanting to go above and beyond for the sake of the client. I mean, that's just not human nature. You're always having a lower amount of percentage, less than 50% of your team that's going to be wired that way. That's just human nature. So how have you been able to counter human nature to be able to get that from your employees?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think part of it is, so I do think you're right. That's different. But my view on people is like, they generally want to be put in a position where they can do their best. And when they are, they feel an obligation to kind of fulfill that freedom and with doing a good job.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that's part of it, is just understanding that and then putting people in that position and not putting a lot of constraints on them. From a hiring perspective, one of the number one things we look for is people who are running to Hanapin, not running away from their current situation. And we do that by just asking simple questions like, hey, what about Hanapin was interesting to you? What about paid search is something that you're looking for? What is it about your current job you don't like? You get an idea really quickly if they're just like, oh, if all they talk about is their current situation and how it's not a good fit and how it's boring or bad or whatever.
I hate my boss. I hate the people I work with. And I mean, they're coming in with the baggage.
Yeah. And on the opposite side, so we have one employee, and it's just an amazing story. He went through our process, which is an incredibly in-depth interview process. And he went through it, and we said, we want to give you a job, but we actually don't have an opening for 6 months. And he said, cool, I'll wait. And he went on to be a camp counselor, like a summer camp counselor.
Yeah.
He checked in with us like every 2 months and said, hey, any chance I can start earlier? And we said no. And so he starts, and turns out to just be this amazing, amazing employee. I mean, he's just been phenomenal, still here. And years later, like 2 years later, he actually moved from Bloomington to Colorado, which is something we allow folks to do, to go remote. We found that as a great retention tool.
Oh, wow.
And when he moved, he was cleaning out his desk, and he found a notebook, took a picture, and posted on Twitter. And it said something like, landing my dream job at Hanapin was the cover of the notebook. And inside was like all the things he was doing during that summer, like getting his certifications and checking in and everything like that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, when you see something like that, it's pretty easy how to see a person like that would be intrinsically motivated.
Absolutely.
To just do a good job.
So you're contending that employees, by and large, want to be able to do that, and perhaps you got to be able to channel them in a way that they can find that internal motivation themselves. I don't mean to say it that way. It's just literally having curiosity that will actually go to the degree of changing something willfully in what they're developing for a client. I mean, that takes some brass, and you want to see that commonplace in your organization, but not if you don't have the way to bring that out of people, right? It's going to fall. It's going to falter. So, do you have that type of system inside of your organization that can help kind of springboard that type of intentionality?
Yeah. So we do have a couple of things. So one, we do have a company-wide revenue share program.
Well, there you go.
And it's revenue. And so we just say we hit our goals, and we put a chunk of this in a pool, and we pay out based on basically how many days you've worked at Hanapin. So a day counts as one share of the pool, and twice a year we pay it out. But I mean, it's money, but it's not that much money. It's enough to get folks to see that, remember what our goals are and know how we're doing, pacing to them or not.
Right.
They're also company-wide, not individual. So no matter how good you're doing, if someone else is struggling, you don't reach down to help them, ultimately that's not going to help you with your long-term goals. We have an award-winning management training program that we're really proud of. A few years ago, we looked at our management team and realized we have a lot of people, this is their first time managing an employee. How do we elevate them? And so it's a multi-year, it's actually 3 years long. First year, it's monthly. Second and third years, it's quarterly, where we bring in and teach the really important skills like you're talking about. How do you identify what motivates a person, intrinsically or extrinsically, and how do you help them connect with that? And that's an important part. Like most people want to dangle a carrot and say, you should care about this. That's not my position. My position is tell me what you care about and let me figure out a path for you to get there.
No, that's the difference right there, is that you got to reach them what they're passionate about, not expect them to work in a space that they don't not even passion, but they don't have the curiosity. You got to be able to meet them and then channel them. And that's what you're really talking about. You're investing in your employees, but you're also learning where they want to go and then being able to pave a way where they can give back to the organization and to themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an open conversation, meaning like sometimes these conversations happen in an organization, but it's a secret. It's like, hey, I really want to focus on e-commerce. If you ever hear about that opportunity, kind of whisper it in this other person's ear and maybe somehow I'll end up on one of those accounts. I have people in our company, oftentimes it's only worked here for 6 months, who come to my open office hours, which is every Friday that I'm here. Anyone can walk in my office and talk about anything. And they'll sit down and they'll say, how do I craft a path that includes e-commerce? And here's why I care about it. And here's the ways I think I can be valuable. And am I crazy to think I can do that? And we have really honest conversations. Sometimes I'm like, we don't need that. So, I wouldn't focus on that if I were you. But because it's an open dialogue and because they can have it with their manager as well as me or anyone else at the organization,
right?
I don't know. Folks are just kind of encouraged to connect with it, even if no one asks them about it. They kind of naturally are thinking that way.
But that's not a thing that you're going to see in a company overnight. You established a foundation, and year over year, you've been setting the environment up and in kind of reinforcing the environment where you can have those conversations, and people that come to Hanapin know that, the word's out that they know they're going to be able to be taken care of and shown opportunities that a lot of other agencies wouldn't be able to even know how to do. So
you're 100% right of like how much of a grind it is. So it's easy for me to sit here now and say, hey, it's great. But 3 or 4 years ago, I mentioned we had, only 70% retention. The next year we had like 80% retention. The next year we had like 87% retention. And now we're at 95% retention. So there was a slow, steady march. And then the other thing that happened is back when we had the worst retention, one of the questions they ask in like best places surveys is often some variation of, do you trust management?
Right.
And that was like a punch to the gut. We scored, I think, the lowest on that question of everything.
Oh man.
And that goes back to the listen. Now I can look back at it and say, yeah, because we'd ask questions and we wouldn't listen to what people actually said and do anything about it. And that's why we were so diligent about listening so much that kind of year after. But now we score 100% on that. And it's it'd be really easy to mess that up.
Mm-hmm.
It only takes one thing that feels shady and sideways and not in alignment with our company values and culture that would turn that number from 100, back down to whatever it was, 60 or 70.
And on top of that, you have many more employees. How many employees does Hanapin have now?
We're just around 70.
So 70 and hitting 100% in trust and management. That's fantastic. So congratulations to you on that.
Thank you. There's a lot of other managers. I think that's who people are thinking about when they ask.
Hey, let me shift the rest of the conversation here into a little bit more of a conceptual matter. There's a continued discussion about specialized agencies and full service agencies, and there's a constant debate about that from a consumer standpoint as well as inside an agency from an education and master of all, jack of all and master of none type of mentality. So one, do you think a specialized agency is actually better off than a full service, or just give me your perspective on this entire argument?
Yeah, so I think my favorite argument or perspective on it is the one that full service actually make on our behalf, which is they say, well, do you really want to have 12 different conversations with 12 different agencies? Why not just pick us? And I'm like, if that's the reason you choose your agency is because it's easier and you get to talk to people less, like if that's the path you choose, then you're not a fit for us, because we're going to push you and we're going to assume you really care about this channel and care about the performance this channel is generating.
Mm-hmm.
So, you would have 100 calls a month if you were just hitting goal or growing and expanding and whatever that takes. And so our market, when we look at our clients, the one consistency, we have clients in travel and education and healthcare and e-com, everything in between. The consistency is paid search really matters to them. It usually drastically outpunches other channels in terms of revenue.
Yeah.
So we have one client does $2 billion a year in revenue. Paid search is the only channel they're active in. Now, that's not all coming from paid search. They have referrals and everything like that, but paid search is the only paid channel that they're active in. It really matters to them. So they don't care how many conversations they have with us. In fact, they're paying us for more all the time. They care about that quality. And I think that's the difference, is the depth that a specialist agency can go when that channel really, really matters to you.
Oh, very good. Very good. Is there any other, are there any pros on the full service agency model?
Yeah, I mean, I can see the argument for, if everyone, if you're managing everything, you should have a better understanding of what everyone's doing, work together, have more synergy, more view through the cross channel. I get that argument. It's not how it works. So I think it's a good argument, but you walk into those agencies and you're like, hey, you're working on this account. Who's the social person on this account? They're like, I don't know.
No,
so you have to go to the social department and say, hey, who's working on this? I know there's some really great agents. I know there really are, and so I'm being kind of flippant. But on the whole, a lot of them are just, they have the silos that are maybe even worse off than using different agencies, because there's this illusion that it doesn't exist.
Conversely, being a specialized agency and working with other agencies, playing nice, not running down the hall with scissors, right? There's also direct challenges in that space, because especially if you're working with another agency that's a full agency, boy, they want to carve your piece out of the equation and pull it in. So there's immediate competitive nature, and on top of it, you also are being matched culture to culture or efficiencies in process compared to other organizations. So do you have a particular playbook whenever you start working in the space along with other agencies, making sure that you don't have pointy elbows there?
Sure. So we do that. We even have clients that we both do, two different agencies do paid search. So think really complex, really large accounts where there's multiple brands or franchisees or something like that. We don't necessarily, I wouldn't call it a playbook. So our mantra is, we want to make digital marketing managers or marketing managers the hero of the organization. And if we're doing that, there is nothing another agency can say or do to pry that client away from us. And that's how we see it happen. We've had meetings, we have clients. So part of what we'll do is we will do like agency summits, and we'll either let the other agency lead or we are, just depending on how the dynamic is. And we'll sit down, we'll talk about what's working and what's not working and what performance is.
Right.
Those usually go very well for us, because it's, hey, you guys are hitting goals, everything looks great, and let's talk about what's happening on the other channels or whatnot. And so that's part of it. But it really is like, we've had clients just stand up and say, hey, this client or this other agency keeps trying to pitch for your business, and we just want you to know we've told them there's no possibility of them winning it.
Oh, that's
yeah, and it's not like performance is part of it, but it's also like part of making someone a hero of the organization is, we want to arm our client side contacts, which is usually a marketing manager.
Sure.
We want to arm them with answers to questions they don't even know they're going to get. So when they're sitting there with their CFO, their CMO, their CEO, whoever it is, and they ask them a deep dive question, we want them just to be able to spit back an answer. And we can't make them listen to us, but if we're constantly providing the information and the reports and making our people inside brokers into those client teams, they're able to do that at a greater pace. And that's more the fear they have by losing out on us. If they were to walk away from us, it's again, performance maybe, but it's also, man, I don't know I literally don't know what I would say in these meetings when I'm just kind of repeating what Hanapin's told me.
You've got to make them your champions. You got to advocate for them, but at the same time, giving them more than they're asking for. I mean, there's also an education process with the client, because your industry, your channel to a deep, deep degree, and they got to be able to come in and be willing to be educated to that degree to really find those nuggets of gold too. So it's also, a relationship with a client that goes far beyond just providing a report. You actually have to get them singing from the same hymn book, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. We'll even do trainings at our client's office. So we had one client brought in 30 different people in their organization. Only like 2 of them were actually in digital marketing, just to listen to us talk about what we do for them and how it works and what some of the kind of the upcoming changes are and things like that.
Very good, and that says a lot right there. Just from a training of client, and obviously that wasn't a billable. That was just part of building that relationship. Maybe it was. I don't know, but that'd still be really cool.
It was not billable.
Okay, Jeff. There's we can certainly learn a lot from Hanapin collectively. All the digital marketers that work out in the space, and we certainly give a huge recommendation to check out Hanapin if our audience is looking for a place to be able to hang their hat. You're keeping fresh content and fresh education going on in the organization. It's always challenging. This industry is always challenging as well because there is a natural tendency for employees to shift gears, and grass is always greener mindsets. And you've certainly take the bull by the horns, and you're doing a heck of a lot in your culture, in your agency, to be able to keep that retention going. So kudos to you for that. To wrap up, we always ask a couple questions to our guests, and it's a bit telling sometimes what they first swing for. What really bugs you in your industry right now?
What bugs me is communication from the big platforms is just a one-way street. We have this idea, we're going to give it to you, now you have to do it this way. And I think that even kills a lot of their really good ideas and makes us very resistant to them. So whether it's ad formats or certain types of automation, or changing the SERPs to only have really 0 results and just a calculator. Yeah, I wish that was more of a conversation, and so it bums me out that they don't think to involve us.
Okay, and we wholeheartedly concur. Although we've seen Google starting to come out from behind their edifice and connecting. Especially, I just witnessed this with the local services advertising section of Google. They're very open and they're very available, which is a rarity on the Google side. So I think they're getting new marching orders to be able to be at least accepting of input. But you're right, it's a one-way street usually with the big boxes. But hopefully they'll continue to chime in and champion into the space. Conversely, what excites you about your industry right now?
I love this interesting thing that's happening where, if you read Google's earning reports, desktop's flat, mobile is increasing, but not the rate it was. Their growth is coming from YouTube and new ad formats, and they literally call out new ad formats. And to me, we're in this interesting time that could be really bad and that maybe the growth isn't there anymore, but it's really fun to me because agencies, clients, and Google and Facebook and all of them all want to grow. And we're kind of realizing that growth isn't just going to come organically from more people going and typing something into a search bar. And so we got to all figure this out together if we're all going to survive and keep growing. And so it feels like it could be a bit of a unifier.
No, I get that. Are you a believer of this fractionalized one-on-one type of consumer marketing that is starting to appear? That it's not about the breadth of visits, but it's about the quality of that engagement and that life cycle of that individual consumer. Is it very? Are you getting that articulated in your marketing now? Yeah,
more and more so. Still a long way away and finding a way to do it effectively and at scale. But yeah, I think so.
Cool. Well, I want to hear something, and we also asked of our guests in the pre-show something fun that the guests have done. I got to hear what happened to you.
So I think I might have given you 2. So one of them is I said I lost 30 pounds since moving to the Midwest.
Congratulations.
No one that moves to the Midwest loses weight.
No, absolutely not.
But it was a little bit of setup because I gained 40 pounds as soon as I moved to the Midwest. But now I've gained lost 30 pounds of it. So.
Oh, I see. See, there's that. You're
Net 10.
Net 10. You're absolutely. I mean, we just have really good food here.
It's so good. So good.
Derby pies are one of them.
All those tenderloins.
Okay. I almost ordered one today too. All right, and then you taught yourself to knit, dude.
Yeah. So earlier this year, as I think a lot of people are, I was noticing I was addicted to my phone, and I'd be trying to just like watch a movie, and my wife would be with me and be like, dude, you're not even watching this movie. You're just on your phone the whole time. And so I was just like, I wonder what I could do, because I'm obsessed with now just moving my hands. And I was like, I don't know, I could try knitting. And so I like just got on Amazon, bought some needles and some yarn, and watched a couple videos. And, sure bet. Like I sat down, I watched an entire movie, knitted through the whole thing, didn't grab my phone once. And so like God. Now it's honest, if I'm not paying attention, Lori will just tell me, grab your knitting needles and be in this movie with me.
You're a better man than I, sir. if I was told that by my wife.
The plus side is like they're awful. Like what I make is just absolutely it is the worst stuff you've ever seen.
So these don't make its way to the employee Christmas gifts from the management, right?
Yes, the white elephant gift, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Although I think our trust score might go down a little bit.
Well, Jeff, it certainly was a pleasure talking with you today, and we wish Hanapin all the best. And it's fantastic hearing from a company that gets it and that's investing in their employees and pathways of careers for the employees. That's what you have to do in this space to be able to build a bank of trust and retain employees on a regular basis. So kudos to you. Is there anything that we can promote for you today?
So the big thing is we have our conference. Mm-hmm. So we have from our PPC Hero blog, we have a conference every year in the States. This year it will be in Philadelphia in April. And if you just go to ppchero.com/hero-conf or just ppchero.com, you can find it and learn all about it.
Excellent. And, hey, if you ever want someone to live cast such an event like that, you might know somebody. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right, for our listeners and our audience, you certainly want to track down Jeff on his Twitter at Jeff Allen UT and ask him questions. He's chiming in on a regular basis in that channel, and you certainly want to track down Hanapin. That's at Hanapin, right?
Correct.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much again, Jeff, for being on the show, and we're certainly going to give you some huge accolades after we post the podcast, because we want digital marketers, and especially the management of marketing firms, to learn more and know how they can give back and be able to cultivate this type of relationship with their employees. So I appreciate your time today.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Well, thanks for listening to Edge of the Web Radio. Special thank you to our colleagues over at Site Strategics, as well as our guest, Jeff Allen. Be sure to check out all the must-see videos over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Check it all out and let us know what you think. Also, hey, you know what? Rate and review us. Give us some feedback, because that's how we get better on a regular basis. And let us know who you'd like us to interview. And saying that, who are we talking to next?
Next week is Nick Usborne. He's going to talk conversational copywriting.
Conversational copywriting. That's interesting.
We'll have a conversation about it next week.
And we'll write some copy. It'll be a thing. Nowhere near knitting, but we'll do it. All right. From all of us over at Site Strategics, thanks so much. And we'll see you next week. Do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. Bye-bye.